Welcome to another edition of Where's the Teaspoon? And today we're talking to Craig Burton and we're going to be finding out about some ghostly goings on in DCHS. Craig, welcome to our podcast. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for allowing me.
Can you tell us a bit about your role and what it is that you do at DCHS?
That's a very, very good question, and it's a very broad answer. My job title is the LSMS and Emergency Planning Officer. And anybody that doesn't know, an LSMS is a Local Security Management Specialist. So basically, I deal with three elements of my role. I look after patients, I look after staff, and I look after buildings. And if any of those get damaged, injured, or stolen, then the whole function stops, basically. So I'm there to protect the staff from injury or make sure that their equipment isn't stolen, and obviously buildings to protect the buildings, and obviously patients from things like animals, dogs, anything that potentially could harm them.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, really broad role then.
Yes.
And how long have you been at DCHS?
I joined in June of 2016, so I've been here, what, 8 years? Is that 8 years?
8 years, okay.
But I've been in the NHS for probably, well, 2012 I started at the NHS, but I've worked in and around the NHS for probably about 20 odd years.
Yeah, okay. And since you started at DCHS, you've seen and heard some strange things, haven't you? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, because of obviously the role I have, I get call outs or reports land on my desk where people want me to, they don't know what to do with it, so it ends up, oh, it must be security related, so it just ends up on my desk. So I sometimes go out and have a look at these different bits and pieces, because they don't know what to do with them. And sometimes and I shall use an example of Hena, the new build at Hena. And basically the health centre there now, I think was finished sometime sort of 2017, 2018. So I had a report that an alarm had gone off during the early hours. So the alarm company had been out, opened up, turned the alarm off, reset it all, and off they went. I got the report and headed out there to have a look at it the next day, and the report that came from the alarm company indicated that the alarm sensors had been activated in a certain routine from the back door of the health centre, up the stairs and along the corridor to a certain door, and then stopped. So I thought, well, okay, in my mind, I'm thinking that this is possibly a member of staff, and I think it was something silly like 11 o'clock at night. I thought a member of staff has either left their phone or something there, so that they've come in out of hours without realizing, set the alarm off. So they've come in through the back door, up the stairs, along the corridor to the swipe door, but if they hadn't brought their swipe key with them, they can't access it and turn around and come back. So I attached the camera and had a look at that and found that, yeah, the lights came on at the bottom of the stairs by the door. Door didn't open. Nobody came in. The lights then proceeded to come on up the stairs and along the corridor in a sequence, as if somebody's walking along there, but the cameras are showing nobody at all on the cameras. And then obviously as the light comes on, the last one goes off on, so it gets to the door, and then the person returns back and the light comes on and off again, as if somebody's walking along the corridor, not activating all the alarms or the sensors. But there's nothing showing on the cameras. Now, the really strange part of that, so I just thought this is, I mean, maybe the clocks are out and the times are out, but no, that they were in sequence. But where they come in through the door at the bottom of the stair, up the stairs and along to the swipe card access for the door, then the sensor stopped at that point, but a sensor activated in a room downstairs by the door. But to get to that door and that room, you have to pass through an open office, but that one didn't activate. But the one in the room in the corner did. And that just didn't make any sense at all. And I'm thinking there must be a fly or something. No, there's just nothing. But upon speaking to staff who were at the old building before the new one was put in, at that point where the swipe door was, that's where the staircase used to be. So it was somebody coming in to the door, going down or up the staircase. I don't know. But I have heard there is possibly rumours of somebody who is in that building, but yeah, some people have said she's there, and you know, but I don't know if they're trying to
when you
rationalise.
say somebody like a ghost,
Yeah,
some kind of spiritual activity.
Well, yeah, they do say that these buildings are haunted by old Ned or whatever it is that they like to call them, but you know, and I just think, you know, sometimes are they trying to rationalise why somebody's taking the biscuits or the tea bags because they've disappeared since they were last in? But yeah, they do say, you know, if strange things happens, oh, that's such and such playing with the electrics.
I mean, that's quite a story then, Craig. Like, you just listening to you tell me about that gave me goosebumps. What was your reaction when you were watching the CCTV and saw that going on? That must have been a strange experience. What did you think?
It is, and you sort of, before you get there, and I know you shouldn't make, you know, prejudge what your thoughts are going to be. I got it in my mind that somebody was returning equipment, and this is the route they were taking in. So I'd rationalised it before I even started to look at the cameras. And then even when I'm looking, I'm thinking, this is odd. It's got to be an electrical fault. This can't be true. Until the one went off downstairs, I'd sort of rationalise the whole thing of what it was, because it's a new building. Yeah, the alarm sequence was not quite right, and it's just what one flashes or makes a noise, so the next one picks it up, and then the next one so I rationalised it away. But when the one downstairs came on in the store cupboard, that you think, well, how's that come on, but nothing else to get in there? So yeah, it's different.
Have you come across anything else like this at DCHS?
How did I know you were going to ask me that one? Mill Hill Dental, we used to own them, that facility. They're a dental practice in Derby City, and their practice was in an lovely old Victorian building. I want to say it's Alveston is the area, but I can't think off the top of my head. But yeah, but it was a lovely old Victorian building that the dental surgery was in, and they always said that they could hear people moving about down in the cellar, but obviously there's nobody in there. But they referred to the lady downstairs as Joan. Yeah. And if you go downstairs to the cellar to do anything or check on anything, don't upset her, because she'll make you jump. And of course, you just think, oh come on, am I the new boy? And they're just sort of, you know, trying to tease me here. But it carried on for a long. Every time I sort of went to visit them, if I had to go down the cellar, they always referred to Joan being down there because she used to make noises. And
in your reports, presumably all these, when you're called out to investigate, yes. I don't know if there have been any other incidents as well that you want to share with us, but what do you put in your reports that go to your manager?
Well, basically, these are the facts, what I know. These are the bits and pieces I can rationally put aside, but other bits and pieces just put unexplained, or, you know, no further information to justify this. Yeah. I mean, Babington's another one. It's an old workhouse. We get, you know, all kinds of things happening there, from lights being left on, and you think, well, nobody's been in there, so what's going on? So is somebody sort of having me on, or are they, you know, is there something there?
Yeah. You know? And what do you think? What do you have any beliefs about the paranormal? And has this role changed your thoughts about the paranormal?
Well, it's one of those things that I just think that I try to keep an open mind. I would, if ghosts are real, or the supernatural is real, or whatever it is, I would love to see one. I'd probably be as frightened as anything on my skin, but I'd love to see one. But they did a lot of reports of other ghosts or things that happen. People see them as people, but don't register them as ghosts. They're just people walking about on the earth or down the street, and they just think, oh, there's people there, and they don't sort of realize that until, say, for example, if you walk into a shop and you see somebody out of the corner of your eye going to a certain part of the shop, when you get over to that part of the shop, like 2-3 seconds later, and there's nobody there, do you rationalize that in your mind by, oh, I'm just, the light's playing tricks on me? Or do you sort of think that was a bit odd or whatever? I mean, there's all sorts of paranormal and those kind of different bits that people like looking into, and those kind of things. I've never, what's the word, a seance or anything like that, or anything that's, I just find it fascinating that these things just happen. I mean, do they? I mean, it's, say, for example, deja vu. Is that a real thing? Is that your mind tricking you to think, I've just seen something? Oh, I was just seeing something of that, or I remember something of that. Or is it that, you're recalling not a previous life, but something that you encountered before? It's all very strange. I mean, I love the thoughts of this, and I would love, to see any of it. So if there's any staff out there that know of, ghosts or stories or strange occurrences, that might be the best one, that they want to tell me about, I'd be fascinated to listen. That'd be great.
So would I. There we go. If anyone's got any unexplained occurrences, get in touch with Craig, and we'd love to hear about them too. That's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do have a bit of an interest in history and archaeology, don't you? Can you tell us a little bit about that? I wonder if that feeds into this as well.
Yeah, I've always loved history, always loved sort of that sort of side. And when I was a lot younger, I went to work on an archaeological dig. I'm very old. I won't say how old I am, but I was born before decimalisation. So in the 80s, I went on a Roman dig down at Wotton under Edge down in Gloucestershire. And it was a Roman villa it was like a training exercise for archaeologists. So I went there for like 3-4 years, for so many weeks a year, to excavate and find out what life was like. So I do like, well, because I was not very tall and slim compared to the rest of the people at the time, I ended up in the latrine area of the villa, which was basically the sewer pipe. So I had to sort of remove all the debris and the information, the soil and everything from there, for it to go off to be analysed. So you would find oyster shells and things of that nature, or different soil types, that you could then find out what kind of foods they were eating, the people. Oysters were very prominent for the Romans, and as you say, then you eat what they want and then just throw the rest in sort of like the gully that will wash down into the river eventually. So fascinating. But things like crop marks or ridge and furrow, which you can see in Derbyshire at the minute, ridge and furrow is very prominent. And if you say, for example, and I think it's out towards Ashbourne and Belper, if you look over to the fields as you're driving through, you can see what looks like a corrugated sort of flow in the fields. So it's like an up and a down. And that's referred to as ridge and furrow, which is basically the medieval farming system. And people were given a strip of land to farm for their own house. And they had like markers, so where it's been dipped, that's where the work has been, the field has been used. But by the time it gets to that, I think it's the mid 1700s, the open field system came in. So landlords managed to grab all the peasants' land and make them big fields. So therefore you see the ridge and furrow in the fields. But then do you then from there think, well, where was the nearest village to that? Because I'm in the middle of nowhere, it's just fields, because people wouldn't be able to walk during medieval times. So are there villages around about that have been lost through time or through, the plague or whatever. So they're now gone, but the structure will still be under the land.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's
But yeah,
fascinating,
so
isn't there? So much we don't know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Craig, there's something else a little bit unusual about you. You've got a fun fact, haven't you? Tell everybody what you like to do to challenge yourself once a year.
Is it a fun fact? Science. That's the big question. Yeah, I like to challenge myself, and probably 6, 7 years ago, I decided to give up a certain food type for a whole year, just as an interest to see what I could do. So I decided I love crisps. Yeah, that is my Achilles heel. I love crisps. So I decided I would give up crisps on the 1st of January, and I wouldn't have crisps then until the following 1st of January. So the first year I did this, it wasn't too bad. I managed to replace crisps with other sort of snack type things, but crisps were off the menu. So I then went on to, I thought, what shall I give up? And I thought, okay, I'll try biscuits for the next year. That was really tricky, but obviously crisps are now back on the menu, but biscuits have gone. The third year was bread. I decided to give up bread, and that was really, really difficult, because it would incorporate flat breads, pita breads, all sorts of breads. Apart from shortbread, because they're biscuits, obviously. But yeah, that was a tricky one, because obviously if you make a sandwich ready to go to work or whatever, yeah, that was a tricky one. The fourth one was chocolate, and my wife says, "Oh, I'll join you this year." So we gave up chocolate, and that was, yeah, I think she found that more difficult than I did. But yeah, it's one of those things. This year I've revisited crisps, just in the hope of trying to lose a bit of weight and be a bit more healthy. But yeah, crisps are back off the menu, if that makes sense. So yeah, yeah, and I think
So
it's
doing
easier.
this,
Sorry, go on.
sorry, Craig. I guess doing this, do you think it's helped increase your willpower, or do you think is it something you'd recommend doing? I can't imagine giving up one thing for a whole year.
Yeah, I think it does increase your willpower. Stops you sort of trying to sneak off and get something. It's like Lent, isn't it? Everybody, when as soon as you had Pancake Day and Ash Wednesday or whatever, or Shrove Tuesday, you sort of think, okay, I'll give up chocolate until Easter, because there's loads of Easter eggs coming about that time. So yeah, that's great. But you sort of think, oh well, I can do that. That's 40 days. But could I do it for the whole year? I think it does increase your willpower, but I think you do replace it with something else, and I think that's something that yeah, it's an interesting fact. But I've always loved food, because, well, obviously you probably know I used to be a chef many moons ago, but yeah, food's fascinated me.
Where were you a chef? Where did you work?
I worked mostly in Cheshire, which is where I'm from. But I live in Staffordshire. So I worked at a couple of hotels and restaurants over in Staffordshire. Church's Mansion over at Nantwich. That's quite a famous place, if anybody's ever heard of that. And a short spell in Macon, which is southeast France. I did a little while in there.
How long
so
were you
yeah.
working in France?
Not for very long. It was an experience that was set up through my training.
Right.
So I was only out there for probably 8 weeks. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. Amazing the things you can learn out there. It was, yeah, it taught me a heck of a lot of how to understand the world of food from the French perspective.
Why did you give up chefing?
The hours, I got to sort of 26, 27, and I thought to myself, well, the salary's not amazing, the hours are rubbish, and you're working when everybody else is out enjoying themselves. So the initial thought was that I would change and get a business mind and potentially open my own bistro. So I left. I got to be a head chef, and then I was working more in the office rather than in front of the stove cooking, which is the passion that I'd got. So I think it seemed to be a natural progression then. So I ended up getting a job for Barclays Bank, hoping to learn business. As it happened, I ended up in the fraud department, investigating fraud, and then it wasn't a massive step to become a fraud officer and then onto security, which is what I do now.
And that's how you've ended up here. Yeah.
Yes.
I do find it fascinating. Across DCHS, we seem to have a lot of colleagues with very varied past careers. It's really interesting.
We do, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today, Craig. And
You're
if
very welcome.
anyone's got any unexplained activity in their workplace, then you now know who to contact. Anything unexplained, just throw it on Craig's desk.
I thought you were going to say, you know who to call, and I was going to say, oh, don't say Ghostbusters or something like that. I thought you've lined yourself up perfectly for a joke lead out here, and I'm thinking, oh, here we go. There we go. Yes, please contact me.
Thank you so much, Craig.
You are very welcome. Take care.